All right, let's go through the ACLS systematic approach. It is our initial assessment whereby we introduce ourselves to our patients and we get to establish whether or not our patient is responsive. Patients are either responsive or they're not. And it is the unresponsive patient that we're most concerned about. If a patient is not responsive, you want to make an announcement because this is advanced life support and we're assuming you're in an advanced situation with other healthcare providers and likely in a facility. So what you want to do for not responsive patients is make a general announcement before you hit the code button. You want to say, hey guys, he's unresponsive. I'm going to check for breathing and pulse. This way, you don't alert the team without having verified pulse and breathing. How long do we check for breathing and pulse? 5 to 10 seconds. That is correct. It's a quick verification whether or not you have a pulse and breathing. For adults, it's going to be the carotid artery or the femoral artery. If there is no pulse, we need to start the BLS survey and start CPR. Your BLS survey, and let's go over that. Under the BLS survey, one of the main components is the high quality chest compressions. You do 30 to 2, 30 compressions to 2 ventilations for adults. You'll do 5 cycles of 30 to 2, and that should happen within 2 minutes. We compress for about 2 inches. When we come up, what do we call that? Recoil. That's correct. And why is recoil important? Because it allows for the heart to refill. The heart gets refilled on diastole. At the end of 5 cycles, what do? We reassess for breathing and pulse. If we have another rescuer, we can use that rescuer to switch after 5 cycles of CPR. Now, if the patient has a pulse, but they are not breathing, you want to give a breath about every 6 seconds. And how do we know the breaths are effective? Chest rise. Now that you've done your initial assessment and you would follow your BLS survey if the patient's not responsive, most of the time you will have an opportunity to deal with your patients as they are. Not all of them will be unresponsive. So the second step in the systematic approach is think of oh my. What is oh my? Oxygenation, monitor, get the patient on the monitor, and get an IV IO access. Now that you've got your patient on the monitor, you can make determinations based on what's present for the patient. One of the biggest things will be your blood pressure. American Heart states that if your blood pressure is less than 90, then that patient would be considered unstable. If you have an arterial line in place, you can use the diastolic number if you happen to be doing chest compressions to determine whether or not those compressions are effective. So if you've got an arterial line and you guys are doing CPR on a victim and that diastolic number is less than 20, chest compressions are not effective. Heart rates we hope are lying somewhere between 60 and 100 and we're not doing chest compressions. Once you check your saturation at some point, it should be above 92. The respiratory rate should lie between 12 and 20 on a normal adult. And agonal breaths is associated with cardiac arrest. Intubated patients, we can use the end-tidal CO2, PET CO2 and sometimes stated, which simply means pressure of end-tidal CO2 during chest compressions if we're monitoring the end-tidal CO2. If it's less than 10, then chest compressions are not effective. We can also monitor things like your glucose and temperature. If a patient has a history of diabetes and they're acting a little loopy, it's common that we can check a glucose. Temperature is also considered. 37 degrees Celsius is normal, but in ACLS, once a patient goes through cardiac arrest and we have done the MegaCode on the patient and we obtain ROSC, remember ROSC? Return of spontaneous circulation. That means we got the pulse back. We can start hypothermic therapy on these patients. In other words, code cool for some hospitals, it's called. And the target temperature is 32 to 34, 32 to 36 for at least 24 hours, and that is in Celsius. So now that you've gathered all of your data, you know what a blood pressure should be, you know what your SATs should be. Basically, you're going to use all of those factors, all of those vitals to make a determination of stability. The patient, if the blood pressure is greater than 90, is stable. If the heart rate is between 60 to 100, then we're stable. If the respiratory rate is between 12 and 20, again, we are stable. And the main thing you want to look at when you determine stability is patient responsiveness. If your patient is responsive and they're talking to you and maybe you have a bad rhythm, they're likely stable, but they might not stay stable. But if you have an unresponsive patient, nonetheless, they are unstable. If you have a patient with a blood pressure less than 90, unstable. After you have made a determination of stability, now you are ready to treat. And anytime we go to treat our patients, you want to be sure about what you're doing. That's why I always say, if you are treating, you better be cheating. And all I mean is use your hospital protocols, approved references, and check with pharmacy. You can also do peer checks on your meds, and that's some policies in hospitals. Trust me, there will come a time when you will know most of what you need to know for most situations, but this takes time and practice. You can also use code box cards. I have literally seen doctors stand as team leaders utilizing great resources to make the appropriate calls. There will be things you know very well, and others will rely on you for your knowledge. But just know your limitations and don't ever be too shy about verifying yourself. Now, let's look at how all of this comes together. In healthcare, we are constantly assessing patients. In most cases, we don't even think about it. From the moment we walk into a patient's room, we establish responsiveness by calling the person's name. At shift change, providers always learn the conditions of their patients. And when we walk into the patient's room, we introduce ourselves. Hey Sam, my name is Alice. I'm going to be your nurse today. From here, the patient will either be able to respond or not. Again, for responsive patients, we care for them as needed, but for the unresponsive patient, we must follow the BLS survey, whereby we alert our team and check the patient for breathing and pulse. No matter what, responsive or not, we're always going to consider, does our patient need oxygenation? We always want to place the patient on appropriate monitors per unit protocols. Consider always placing an IV or an IO access for quick treatment should you need it. With monitoring in place, your interaction with your patient, you should be able to make a determination about stability. Responsiveness is king here, and blood pressure is queen when it comes to determining stability. If the patient is unresponsive, no doubt about it, the patient is unstable. If the blood pressure is less than 90, unstable. You must be able to make a determination of stability based on your patient's presentation as an advanced healthcare pro. I want to thank you for watching this entire video. My name is Sharina Hamilton. I designed and presented this for you all, and as with anything in medicine, it is a practice and ever evolving. Resources used for this presentation is based on the 2020 American Heart Association Provider's Manual. If you have any questions or input, please bring those to class with you as we will continue building on these life-saving concepts. Thanks.